Hey guys, Marcus Catkin from Blindside Football. It's Tuesday, so it's waiver wire time. This time, let's focus on some waiver wires there to get you through your fantasy playoffs, really help you out, could be potential starters for you. We don't need any more of those deep sleeper guys, any of those guys you're going to hold on to and hope they kind of blow up because, hey, before you know it, the season's going to be over. You're in your fantasy playoffs. You want guys that are going to create an impact now. So here's some impact now players. Starting off with Latavius Murray. Obviously, we talked about him last week, and he broke onto the scene last week with his huge game. Only had 4 carries in the game, but 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards. If the Raiders really want to get something going on the ground game, I think they've realized that it's no longer MJD, it's no longer Darren McFadden. Latavius Murray could be their future, so they're going to kind of feature him a little bit more. So he's got a tough schedule coming up, but he is a guy that could be a game changer, especially with his explosiveness like we saw the other night. Next up, Dan Herron. A little bit less excited about him. Obviously, he's going to play a complementary role to Trent Richardson. Got the start this past weekend, but supposedly that was because of Richardson's quote-unquote illness. I don't know if I'm entirely buying that, but splitting the workload with Richardson, if he continues to see 12 to 15 carries, he could be a good injury fill-in guy. If you've already got your roster set, you've already got a couple of good running backs, he could be a guy to fill in for you if something happens to one of your running backs. They get an ankle injury or a concussion or something like that, where they're going to be out 1 week. He'll be a decent fill-in guy, so get him for a little bit of bench depth heading into your fantasy playoffs. Next up, Jarvis Landry. I think, guys, he's becoming the #1 wide receiver for the Dolphins. I know on the season Wallace has outscored him, but it seems as of late they're really going to him a lot. Only 2 games this season with less than 4 receptions for Jarvis Landry, so he's been involved pretty much right since the beginning, but now getting more red zone usage and getting more involved in the offense. Again, he's going to be a bench guy for you and give you some depth in case you get an injury to one of your big play wide receivers. Next up, LeGarrette Blount. He might end up being a starter for you guys. Always hard to tell with Bill Belichick and what he's going to do with that Patriots backfield, but LeGarrette Blount knows their offense. He's been there before. He did really well for them this time of the season last year when he could kind of wear down defenses. So something to pay attention to. You're never going to feel quite good about putting LeGarrette Blount in your starting lineup, but he's going to have games like he had last week, guys, where he gets you those 2 touchdowns. You just never know when they're going to come, though. Kenny Stills, guys, for me, he's the Saints wide receiver you want to own right now. Brandon Cook's obviously going down. Somebody needs to kind of fill that role, and Kenny Stills had the most targets on the team last night, had the most receptions, the most receiving yards. I mean, he didn't get a touchdown, but he did everything else for you. Again, great bench depth in case something happens to one of your starters in the fantasy playoffs. And we'll talk about this in the podcast tomorrow, but the Saints have an excellent fantasy playoff schedule, especially Drew Brees, so look for Kenny Stills to be involved quite a bit down the stretch. And then finally, maybe more of a speculative ad, but Jordan Cameron, if he's out on your waiver wire, it sounds like he's going to play Week 13. He played some of his best games last season when Josh Gordon was in the game to help spread the defense. So I'd pick him up and kind of give you some bench depth if you've been carrying a guy like Dwayne Allen or something like that, maybe Antonio Gates, those types of guys. Some of those lower tight end ones that have been kind of iffy lately. Jordan Cameron give you some good bench depth. He's another one that I think weeks 15 and 16 have a great fantasy playoff, so let's see what they can do. Don't forget to subscribe below for my daily fantasy updates and follow me on Twitter @MarcusCatkin.